Starting a virtual bookkeeping business is not as hard as you think. You just need to know where to start, and I want to help you kickstart your business in just 5 days. We are hosting the Bookkeeping Biz workshops once again. These only roll around a couple of times a year, and the first round is happening January 22nd through January 26th. We have opened registration, so you can now register at bkworkshops.online. But let me go through what to expect real quick in this 5-day workshop series. It is a live virtual workshop series held in Zoom, and we meet every day for the week of January 22nd at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. On Monday, we are meeting for a little pre-party. This is going to be a 30-minute get to know your host, me, and others who are embarking on this workshop series with you, and we'll also cover what to expect for the week. Workshop 1 is covering what it really takes. After this workshop, you won't be stuck in self-doubt about your abilities to run a business, and you'll have the confidence to finally get started. Wednesday is workshop number 2, all about that tech. I know you've already been spinning your wheels on this one, so much time researching, and after this workshop, you'll be able to hit the ground running without any more wasted time and confident that you have the right tools. On Thursday, we'll be hosting workshop number 3, creating a business, not a job. You don't want to leave your 9-to-5 to start a business just to have it feel like another job that you can't get a break from. So in this workshop, I'll help you get clear on what you really want out of your business and who you want to serve, so you aren't working the same or more hours for less pay and no benefits. And on the final day, Friday, I'm hosting my bonus masterclass, Selling Without the Sleaze. Chances are selling is one of your hangups. I know it was for me too. As a fellow introvert, I can help you tap into those superpowers and teach you how to begin attracting dream clients without it feeling icky. The best part about all of this is it's only $27, and you'll have access to the replays in your very own portal for an entire year and a daily PDF workbook to solidify everything you're learning and take action. Registration closes January 23rd, so please head over to bkworkshops.online to register today. That is bkworkshops.online to register. The link is also in the show notes. Remember, these only happen a couple times a year, so don't sleep on this. Join us today. Even if you can't attend the workshops live, you'll have access to the replays. All right, I'll see you there. Now let's get into today's episode. Have you ever wondered what a bookkeeper should be doing every month for clients? What about what a successful daily structure looks like? Well, these are 2 questions I'll be diving into today on the podcast. I recently put a call out to the listener audience to submit questions you'd like answered on the podcast. You can still submit questions either via email or by recording a question on SpeakPipe. You can go to speakpipe.com/ambitiousbookkeeper or email support@ambitiousbookkeeper.com. I will also link these in the show notes. But before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know that in January, I'll be running the Bookkeeping Biz workshops again, so mark your calendars. Registration will open in January, but the workshops will be held the last week of January, the 22nd through the 26th. I'll put the link in the show notes so you can bookmark the page and register when it's time. They're only $27, and these workshops are packed with valuable insights and information for anyone who is thinking about starting a bookkeeping business or in the early stages of their business. I can't wait to bring these back. They're honestly one of my favorite things, and they only happen in the spring and the fall. Now, let's get into today's episode. Hey, and welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm Serena Shoup. I am a CPA and mom of 3, and I'm running a virtual bookkeeping business mostly from my home. You're in the right place if you're a bookkeeper, accountant, or an accounting student, and you know that your purpose is bigger than sitting in a cubicle. If you're ready to learn some actionable tips and strategies to help you start and grow a bookkeeping or accounting business, I hope you stick around. I got 2 related questions that I'll be answering today through listener submissions. Number 1 was, what are the essential bookkeeping services that everyone should offer? How do you know whether to offer AP and AR services, and what does each entail? It's like a few questions packed in one. And then the second question was, what does the daily structure of a successful bookkeeper look like managing multiple client accounts? So they're pretty related. So I figured I would answer them both on this podcast. I think it's a great podcast for you if you are thinking about starting a bookkeeping business and you're kind of like, what does it actually entail? Do I know enough? Am I ready? I think this will shed a lot of light on the day-to-day work that a bookkeeper does. And if you do not have accounting experience, I am going to link some resources in the show notes for you. Two of them are, I stand behind the programs, and if you want to learn bookkeeping, those are the programs I recommend. So those will be linked in the show notes. And then if you do have bookkeeping or accounting experience, you are in the right place. And you probably are ready. And I would love to guide you through opening your bookkeeping business. So definitely check out the Bookkeeping Biz workshops when they open for registration in January. It's $27, going to be totally worth it. And we will get you off the ground and up and going. All right, so the first question is basically surrounding what are the essential bookkeeping services that everyone should offer? Now, the bare minimum that I believe, I guess this is all like subject to opinion maybe, but in my opinion, the bare minimum is categorizing transactions and reconciling the bank account. That is the bare minimum that all bookkeepers should be able to do and offer your clients. Now, you can go up from there by reconciling balance sheet accounts, doing financial statements, lots of other things, but the bare minimum is categorizing the transactions that come in and out of the bank account, things that have already happened. Okay? If you're super new to virtual bookkeeping, like maybe you are in corporate or you used to be in corporate and things were done very manually, there are a lot of tools that make bookkeeping way more efficient than we handled things when I was in corporate using ERP systems like Microsoft Dynamics. For instance, we have bank feeds now. Most banks, you can actually link the activity and get a feed that links daily transactions into QuickBooks Online or Xero or many other softwares that are on the cloud, which feed the transactions, like I said, on a daily basis, allowing you to categorize and create rules around categorizing quickly. So you can use artificial intelligence to make your job a lot faster and easier. We provide our clients with a tool called Hubdoc, which allows them to forward or upload receipts and invoices that we can process quickly and match up with bank transactions and attach those receipts and invoices to QuickBooks or Xero. This is something that you can add as a service. We spin this as a way to have audit-proof books and a way to not pester our clients as much. If they just upload the receipts, then we have fewer questions about transactional categories. A lot of bookkeepers ask me if we require receipts or chase after them and manage them, and the answer is no. We offer this as a complimentary service or product, but we don't chase after missing receipts unless it's something big like a fixed asset or we can't identify what the transaction is for without it. But a lot of times it's just a question of the client and they may or may not have the receipt. It's really up to them to maintain their records, and it's not up to us to keep those receipts. We can just ask them what the transaction was for and go based off of their word. This is something that you should include in your engagement letter too, like who's responsible for what, where do we draw the line? We're not going to chase after receipts. We're providing Hubdoc as a service to make it easier on you, but you're not required to use it, la-di-da-di-da, all those things. Okay, so part 2 of this question is, how do you know whether to offer AP and AR services and what does each one entail? I'm going to start with what each one entails, and then I'm going to dive into whether or not you should offer it. Not all types of industries or business models operate with AR, accounts receivable, or AP, accounts payable. So this widely depends on the type of client you serve or want to serve. For example, we serve mostly online businesses. Online businesses do things in real time. They use a checkout feature, so it's either e-commerce or course creators, and people buy their courses immediately or buy the product and swipe a credit card immediately. So there's no accounts receivable. There's also usually not accounts payable because when they're doing transactions like buying software, it's on an auto recurring basis. It happens on the credit card and it happens immediately. So there's no accounts payable. We also have clients who are agencies. So they have accounts receivable where they're invoicing their retainer clients or their clients, but no accounts payable because they're still operating. Their expenses are all on a credit card and they happen on a recurring basis and immediately. There's other industries like construction. You might have both AR and AP. And there's lots of other industries that it widely varies, right? And it varies depending on the business model as well. Now, AR, accounts receivable, is like setting up invoicing and sending invoices to their clients is different than the collections piece. So make sure that if you're thinking of offering the invoicing piece, but not the collections, that you're differentiating and clearly defining who's responsible for which aspect in your engagement letter. For example, we do invoicing for 2 clients. We enter the invoices and send them on the first of the month. It's a really easy one-time setup if these are recurring retainer clients or monthly invoicing clients. For example, our own clients are set up this way. We do a recurring invoice in Xero. You can do recurring invoices in QuickBooks where they automatically get emailed out. And then we also set up invoice auto reminders for our clients if they are one of these clients that send out invoices so that there's not a human having to chase after the collections. And we personally don't offer collection services in general, but sometimes if a client is having a hard time getting payment, even after all those reminders went out, we will do a follow-up, but that's pretty rare. AP requires much more hands-on. It's not a once a month thing, and it ties you to deadlines much like running payroll, which I'm going to add into this in a minute. It requires you getting approvals from the business owner. It requires timely processing, having a regular cadence. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's bi-weekly, and it requires cash flow planning for some clients. So they might need help with the cash flow, like deciding which invoices should be paid, how much money they have to pay these. Do some of them need to be bumped out to the next week? All that kind of stuff. And it makes the process a little more cumbersome and time consuming. Now, the third aspect is payroll. The question didn't include payroll, but I kind of lump it in with AR/AP because it's similar in that it requires a regular cadence. It might require some approvals, but I do recommend using a third-party processor like ADP or Gusto so you aren't the one submitting tax deposits and responsible for all of that. For our firm, we handle setup, but we train our clients on how to actually run payroll themselves. Otherwise, it ends up much like AP, and sometimes you might end up running off-cycle payrolls or these one-off things, but you can absolutely offer the service to run payroll. We have done this for some clients in the past. Just make sure you have enough turnaround time for AP or payroll for approving timesheets or AP, because that part of it will always need to be done by someone on their staff or the owner. Now, how do you know whether or not to offer these services? It really depends on how often you want to be touching the client's books and what your backup plan is if you can't do it one week. Like I said, we don't offer anything other than setting up invoicing for a couple of clients, and it's something that you don't have to offer every client. It could be an a la carte option or only included in your higher level packages. And this brings us to the final question. What does the daily structure of a successful bookkeeper look like managing multiple client accounts? Everyone handles things a little differently, and this also depends on how many clients you have, what the cadence is for touching the accounts, and what your scope of services is. If you're doing weekly bookkeeping for client A, for example, this would maybe include bi-weekly payroll, bi-weekly accounts payable, maybe invoicing monthly entries and reconciliations, and perhaps a monthly meeting. And say you're the only one for simplicity's sake, and you don't have anyone on your team yet, so you're the only one doing the work for this client. I would structure everything around payroll as likely they've already established their pay periods. Let's say they need payroll submitted by Wednesday every other week. So on Monday, I would send reminders to the client to check timesheets and have them to you by Tuesday so that you can run payroll on Wednesday morning on week 1. Then I'd make accounts payable approvals due the following Tuesday if you want to stagger, Or you could have them all due the same Tuesday and just work on that one client every other Wednesday to get it all out of the way. So Mondays, you'd potentially be pulling timesheets and entering AP transactions for client A and sending an email that says something like, attached are your payroll timesheets, or please log into Gusto to approve your timesheets by Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern so I can run payroll on Wednesday morning. And then you also have the following bills due. And this is where I would screenshot the section of the AP aging that's due, or screenshot the whole thing with the current due highlighted. As a side note, as a CEO, I prefer things not being attached to emails. I mean, yes, attach things also, but I like being able to glance at an email and have all the information I need, because if you think like the CEO, they're going to be checking their email on their phone throughout the day probably. And so if they can't easily access the information you're trying to provide them, it's going to make it more difficult. So make it easier on your CEOs, on your business owners, screenshot the pertinent information in the body of the email and also attach it. So you would say something like, you also have the following bills to do, you have the screenshot of the AP aging, the current stuff that's due is highlighted, so it's very obvious that this is what's due. Please approve by Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern so we can pay these vendors on Wednesday. The AP aging is also attached or something like that. Then on Wednesday, you'd be processing payroll and AP for client A. That could take a couple hours both days. So you're looking at maybe 4 hours a week just for these two processes on this one client. Then say all your other clients are monthly clients, meaning you don't do anything weekly for them, just month-end reconciliations and maybe financial statement reports. But in order for your work not to pile up until the end of the month, you still want to touch these clients weekly or bi-weekly. So you'd spread the work out over each week on the days that you aren't handling payroll and AP. I personally suck at this. I procrastinate and I let things pile up. And that's why I have a team who does the weekly bookkeeping other than a few clients that I handle. But what I am good at is theming my days. I don't take meetings or calls of any sort on Mondays or Fridays. Those days are reserved for client work. If I need to do stuff, maybe I have appointments like my Mondays, for example. Every other Monday, I volunteer in my son's classroom. I also have my music/guitar/songwriting sessions that I do every Monday. And I also like to have Mondays and Fridays blocked off in case I want to take a long weekend to go somewhere, or just have those days for me time. Sometimes I do a cycling class on Friday mornings, or when it's really nice weather, I paddleboard. If it's winter, I would love to be able to go snowboarding on a Monday or a Friday. Yeah, so that's what I do there. I don't take calls or anything on Mondays and Fridays. I do work typically at least a couple hours every Monday and Friday. It's deep work. It's something that's a project. Like, for example, this is a Monday, as when I'm recording this podcast, I'm batching a few podcasts on a Monday evening. And yeah, so I don't do meetings or calls on Mondays or Fridays. On Tuesdays, my day is dedicated to team meetings. So this is the day that we have our weekly team meeting, and every other week I have a one-on-one with each of my team members so that they're staggered. And then the rest of the day is, checking email, doing other little project things. And then Wednesdays and Thursdays are open for other client calls and mentoring other bookkeepers. So I would suggest doing something similar and batching your similar tasks into specific days. This is why it's so crucial to have a scheduler like Acuity or Calendly. If you have Dubsado, you can build it into there. Google even has a way for you to schedule when you're available for meetings and sending a meeting link. There's so many options. Something else I recommend doing is to bake in 30 minutes in the morning as a startup routine and 30 minutes midday to check email, and then maybe another 30 minutes for a shutdown routine if you want to get really structured in your workday. My day is a little more fluid, so I don't really ever do a shutdown routine. I just make sure to check and respond to email twice a day. I'm not in my email all day long. And this helps me maintain my focus and manage my workload. It's a little like the question about a successful day of a bookkeeper. I'm a huge fan of structuring your day to take advantage of when you are the most productive. So my productivity is going to look different than yours. I have a lot of times, and also depending on the season of life you're in and what you have going on at home and where you're working from. I know my day looks different now as I'm back working from home than it did when I was renting an office in town. And my day looks totally different now that both my kids are in elementary school than it did last year when one was in preschool. So allow yourself the flexibility to try out different things and figure out what is going to work for you. Don't get discouraged if something's not working. Just change it a little bit. Take some tips from this podcast, maybe talk to some other bookkeepers, see what they structure their day like. And it really boils down to the type of tasks you're doing and when you're most productive and managing your capacity. So one of the things that I kind of talked about was like the various things that you might be doing for different clients. Like I wouldn't suggest doing AP and AR for all of your clients. You want to have a mix of different things so that you're not slammed every single day and you have space and time in your calendar to take sales calls and to, as you're building a team, you would have team meetings and things like that. And baking in space for you to bring on more projects or more clients and things like that. So I hope this podcast was helpful, especially for anyone out there who is if you're starting your new business or if you're thinking about starting a bookkeeping business. Hopefully this was even helpful for you if you're already running your business and you need a little guidance on how to structure your day a little differently because it's maybe not working right now. Hopefully it's good for anyone who's also running a side hustle. I mean, like I said, as I'm recording this episode, it is a Monday night. It is quiet in my house. This is when I'm able to do these bigger, more time-consuming, deeper projects like recording a podcast, or maybe that would be putting together content for your marketing or planning out some events that you're going to go to meet new clients, or perhaps working on a big cleanup. I mean, I also have some client work that I'm planning on doing tonight. So I have a catch-up client that I need to work on, and I have a client meeting on Wednesday that I need to finish up some things for because my Tuesday is jam-packed with meetings and I know I'm going to be exhausted after that. That's another thing, like know yourself, batch things together if that works for you. For me, I prefer having all of my meetings happen on a certain day. That way, like I just know that day I'm not going to get any extra work done. I am just dedicated to pouring into my team on Tuesdays. So that's why I say like it's a Monday night. I technically have another day in between where I could be doing some of this client work, but I'm meeting with a client on Wednesday. So looking at your entire week and planning that out as well. I do have a previous episode pretty far back there. I will link it in the show notes. It's about planning out your bookkeeping work. Kind of ties in nicely to this, probably a little bit of overlap, but that's where I talk about my weekly planning ritual where I sit down with my passion planner. If you don't have one, I highly recommend it. I'm a paper planner person, but I also use project management system online called Asana. So I couple the two together to manage my own workload. And I just really like pen and paper for certain things and being able to visually see my week and plan out the work that I'm doing. So that's the other key component of having a successful day. Little bonus tip there is look at what you have scheduled for the week, preferably schedule in your personal stuff first and do your business around it. But I know that's not always possible. So put down the work meetings that you have, schedule the time that you're going to need around that to do the work and fill it in from there. So it's a constant thing that I'm doing every week. I'm looking at the week ahead, figuring out, okay, when am I realistically going to be able to work on XYZ that's going to be due on this time? And it's just a whole game of managing deadlines as an accountant. So anywho, I really hope this podcast was helpful for you. If it was, please share it with another bookkeeper or an accountant. Let's take a screenshot, share it in your stories on Instagram. I'm at Ambitious Bookkeeper, and let me know what your biggest aha was. You can DM me. You don't have to share that publicly if you don't want to. And let me know if there's something that you would like answered on the podcast. Like I said, you can submit those to support@ambitiousbookkeeper.com. Until next week, stay ambitious. Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shu. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout, and you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Be ambitious.